Hi everyone, this is Scott Dudley from SaaS Startup Stories, and today my special guest is Chris Dickey, who's based in Jackson, Wyoming, and he's the founder and CEO of Visably, which is software to measure and improve search engine visibility. Welcome to the show, Chris. You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, so let's get stuck into it. We'll start off with your background and what got you interested in SaaS in the first place.
Well, I've been a SaaS customer for who knows how long. I come from the agency background. I actually have a PR agency in addition to the SaaS company. And as long as I've been a marketer, we've always relied on SaaS, whether you called it SaaS or software or whatever you wanted to call it. Obviously, everything has moved toward a subscription-based model and a cloud-based model, in which case that makes a lot of sense. It's recurring revenue. You're able to keep your subscriber base ostensibly and grow upon it, which is always about compounding. And I think it makes a lot of sense. From our side of things as marketers, we really rely on these third-party tools to help us get organized, help us communicate, help us reach people. It's just a nice way to pay a small amount of money every single month and have this great service. So yeah, that's my familiarity with it, and definitely have been using it professionally for a decade or more.
Yeah, it's a great business model, especially compared to services, in my opinion, as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think, SaaS came out of the fact that people used to buy a software license and it was into perpetuity, and then when there's a new software that came out, you just bought the new software, right? And but I think they always had problems with once you're giving people the actual, CD or whatever it might have been, it was just like, you can't really control the piracy on it and so on and so forth. So I think SaaS just kind of solves all those problems about keeping it really transparent, keeping it fair, and also allowing people to access to a product that would have maybe cost a lot more if you had bought a full, license into perpetuity.
Yeah, that's a good point with the piracy. I can remember I had the Microsoft CD, and yeah, I remember I'd copied that a few times. So I'm sure I'm not the only one as well. But
oh, everybody did. I think Adobe just got passed around, So.
Yeah, that one as well. Yeah. All right. So as far as funding goes, did you borrow VC money to launch your software company, or did you bootstrap it yourself? Tell us a bit about how you got Visably off the ground in the beginning.
Yeah, in the very beginning, we started off, there was a grant through the state that I live in, Wyoming. Wyoming is a energy rich state. We have mostly oil and gas production here. And, I'll hand it to the legislatures. They basically realized that's not the future. It's a bust and boom industry. They wanted to have more diversification of the workforce. They offered a grant for, especially for tech startups, to come here and start a company in Jackson, in Wyoming, anywhere in Wyoming. I already lived here. I had this idea in my head for years, and I thought, why the hell not? So I applied for the grant. We won it. It wasn't a lot of money. It was $50,000, but $50,000 was enough for us to get organized, hire some contractors, and start to develop a minimum viable product, something at a stage where we would have either had to bootstrap it ourselves and somehow come up with that money. We ended up spending closer to $100,000 to build our MVP, which came out of our own pockets, but at least 50 of it came from the state, which is a huge chunk.
Oh, yeah.
And that got us to a point where we had a product that that worked, and it was proof of concept. Didn't have any customers on it, but we showed that we could execute on the idea that we had. And we showed that to investors, and the investors were excited enough to give us a seed round. And when I say investors, we did not go through VCs. We did not have institutional money. This is angel investment. So these were just wealthy individuals who personally invested in the very first round at a Visably.
Okay, that would have been pretty exciting at the time.
Well, we closed the seed round right before the pandemic, which I feel very fortunate about. I think we fully closed on everything the last week in February.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally like the next week, like everything hit the fan worldwide.
Yeah, interesting timing. Fair enough.
I know. Yeah. You know, what's interesting though is that the capital markets have not dried up during the
Ah, okay.
pandemic. At least in the US, I can tell you that the the upper slice of the economy has been relatively unaffected by the pandemic, and that is people who are already deeply entrenched in digital are doing well, if not better. Um, Big tech is doing very well right now. The stock market's doing just fine
Mm,
in the United States, and actually is up depending on what sector you're invested in. And so I would say those capital markets where investment comes from is still flowing fairly normally. It's really, I think, other aspects of the economy that have been more significantly hit. And, you know, I think everything crawled to crawl down, or like really slowed to a crawl in kind of March, April, May. But that was just fear.
yeah.
And once we got over the fear and realized that, oh, like this is going to be a bear to deal with, but we can still do our work and we can
Mm,
still, you know, be productive individuals. Then I think everything kind of came back. And I saw that on the agency side. I think you saw that within the stock market. I think you saw that, you know, with capital markets. And so I think it's not a bad time to be an entrepreneur. You know, there's a lot of change happening in the world. That means there's a lot of opportunity. You know,
yeah.
with change, it means that some industries are no longer going to survive and other ones are emerging. And that's a great time to identify what's emerging and how to get on that bandwagon.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. All right. So tell me a little bit about the Visably product then and what it provides its users.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're exclusively focused on search engine visibility. We're not an SEO solution. What we look at is how do brands interact with customers in search. And what I mean by that is we look at every potential touch point in the first page of search, from advertising to your own SEO, to reviews, media reviews, to e-commerce sites that are selling your brand. Really, from a customer perspective, where are you going to discover a product or service within search? And that's what we measure. So we go way beyond SEO. And what that comes down to for us is looking at the page content on every single link in the first page of search. In my mind, as a digital marketer, that's really where the rubber hits the road, is trying to understand where customers first interact with, first become impacted by a brand or a product that they need. It quite often happens on websites that are not your own, in which case, how do you better manage that process, and how do you better influence what people see when they click on a link?
Yep. Okay. Fascinating. All right. So at the moment, you're in beta mode. So I'm just wondering when the pro version will be released.
So we'll have Pro live, hopefully very early 2021. So we're about a month and a half out from having our Pro
Oh,
released.
awesome.
Our beta platform, we released. It's free. You can come to visably.com, check it out. It's Visably, and basically it allows you to do this audit of the of a SERP, or search engine results page. It allows you to identify any content anywhere on the page, and we'll tell you all these kind of metrics around how well that content is being surfaced within the page. What Visibly Pro is going to do is allow you to do a much kind of scaled up version of that. So now, rather than looking at one search engine result at a time, you can look at 1,000 at a time, or 10,000, or
Oh, cool.
100,000, however many it might be.
Okay. Yeah, I've had a bit of a play around with it myself. The beta version is very cool, very impressive, must say.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what is your product roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months? I guess the pro version is the initial sort of focus, but moving a little bit beyond that as well.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I think what we're going to end up doing is um, doing an MVP version of our Pro, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to be available first. And then we'll eventually kind of buttress it with all the other features that we really wanted to bring in. So, you know, whenever you're building software, there's a whole lot of very sophisticated things that don't really make you money, like an account setup wizard, and
Oh, yeah.
you know, little things like an internal mechanism to upgrade or downgrade a subscription, having more content solutions and FAQs on the site, things like that. So having more robust reporting of the data that we're already collecting. So now it just becomes, how do you package it in a beautiful, accessible way and export it? So those are the things that we'll kind of roll out in the next 18 months. I think the first year, 2021, is really to be all about seeing how quickly we can get to a break-even point. We don't have a huge cash burn. We probably burn around $50,000 a month currently, which for a tech startup isn't very much. I mean, it's expensive for anyone, personally, if you're bootstrapping, but that's really not a lot when you're paying a whole lot of people to, especially engineers. But for us to hit that 50,000 a month revenue, I think would be our number one goal. And then number two is to say, how can we make this better and how can we reach more people and demo this more and more? Yeah.
Cool. So is the plan to have multiple tiers or just the one tier?
Exactly. Yeah, no, absolutely. We have 5 subscription tiers, and then we have enterprise. So enterprise is totally custom. Those solutions can cost anywhere from, I don't know. I mean, they could cost $1 million a year, depending on what kind of data you want. So it's entirely up to the provider or the client that comes to us and the requests they make for the data.
Okay, cool. So regarding marketing, you're currently in beta. Are you doing much marketing with the beta version?
We did at the beginning. We just did a lot of testing to see what would stick and what audiences would be interested. We also just wanted to have something to kick it off, some kind of announcement to say, hey, we're here. And so we did that. And then we've kind of pulled back from any kind of paid marketing activities that we're doing right now, mostly because we don't have something to sell. And we really need to be focused on engineering. And that is the number one thing. We have to have a very functional, a product that works in the way that we say it is. It's funny, people at the end of the day, one of the things that they love about a brand, it's not a hard thing to do, but it is actually hard to execute, is they say, what do you love about us? And a very common response for any customer is, you do what you say you do. And frankly, like a lot of companies, whether it's a consumer packaged good or you're buying a pair of running shoes or you're buying a SaaS solution, they don't live up to the hype. They don't live up to all the points that you're saying. They're buggy or the running shoe falls apart or whatever it might be. As long as you develop this durable product that delivers the things that you say it's going to deliver, and frankly, that reliability is kind of a hard thing to engineer, especially at scale. So there's a whole lot that we just need to focus on. A lot of it's engineering, but at the end of the day, it's all about having a beautiful, simple platform that delivers the data people want.
Okay, so I guess at the moment you wouldn't really be aware of your most successful customer acquisition channels. Would that be right?
I can definitely tell you, to this point, the most productive single channel or activation we did was we launched on a platform called producthunt.com. And Product Hunt just gave us this flood of users, and it was fairly inexpensive, and it really got the word out. And it's international in reach, and there's a lot of just early adopter kind of marketers on there, and it was just a great kind of springboard. As a career marketer myself, I can tell you that content and then sponsored email are two of the most productive things that you can do. And because a sponsored email is, that you're sending it out to the subscriber base of a very specific kind of B2B publication. And as long as you tweak your message in a way that you're providing value to those readers, they can do very, very well. And they bring in a lot of really qualified leads. One area that we have not put a lot of money into is pay-per-click advertising or any kind of like display or like social media advertising. We are a B2B platform. I don't think social media is tremendously productive. We've done some small tests with Twitter and with LinkedIn. We will do more with them in the future. It's not a productive way for us to spend our money right now.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. All right, so you've got all of these beta users sort of on a list. What are the plans to upgrade them to Pro when it goes live, and then also attract new users once you've actually, after that?
Well, we're trying to build a lot of interesting content pieces and then pump those out through an email newsletter program. And so driving people back to our blog, getting them interested in our data through the use of kind of just fun content pieces. And we're surfacing a lot of data that they've never seen before, and we're putting it into, I think, a really organized contextual blogs. And so I think people take a look at that and they're like, oh, that makes so much sense. We should be doing that for our brand. Or I read your blog and I learned all these things. And now I want to, experience the product or whatever it might be. And so I think the content piece is a huge part for us. It's just education and content. Number two, we're really trying to get our customers and our users, they're all free, they're not really customers yet, to sign up for a demo. And the almighty software demo, right? Everybody is trying to get you to do their demos, but our demo is very powerful. In our experience, people go through the demo and they're like, wow, this is really unique. I love this data. I've never seen this before. I could see a million ways that we would use this. So for us, it's really just getting them to that point of accepting a meeting to take a demo. And then most our demos, we book them for 20 minutes. We book ourselves for an hour, knowing full well that 20 minutes is going to turn into an hour with that person because they get so excited about what we're doing. And so again, it just becomes, how do we get the person to book a demo? And for us, it's content. For us, it's constant outreach and just being personable.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so obviously churn is a huge factor for any SaaS company. What are your plans at the moment to approach reducing the churn and retaining the paying customers once you do launch the Pro version?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have the full answer for you there. We just need to learn a lot about who the right customer is for us. And help them be successful on the platform. And I think there's a lot of literature about customer acquisition cost and what does it take to get a customer in the door. And then there's a whole nother challenge. How do you keep that customer? And the way you keep that customer is one of the biggest strategies is just get the right customer in the first place. Like you could spend a lot of money trying to acquire somebody who really, it's really not quite a good solution for them, whether it's their business or their role in the organization or whatever it might be. Like if they're just not using the data on a regular basis, or you're not solving a real pain point for them, you're just not going to keep them, right? Because then they're just paying the subscription fee and they're never using the data. And one day they look on their credit card statement, they're like, oh yeah, like I don't need that. So I think it becomes really important to just focus on who is the person that you're really solving a pain point for, and who is somebody who's really going to benefit from what you're trying to deliver, and then focus on acquiring those people.
And also delivering on those promises, like you mentioned before as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's huge, because I think, early on when we launched our beta, we knew that it was buggy. We knew that it was not fully baked, but we kind of needed to put users on it to flesh out those bugs. And we needed to put users on it to like see where our blind spots were with the software, because we couldn't scale it with just like a team of 4 people, right? So we did pay good money to get it out there. And I think not everyone's first impressions were that great. And that's that's okay. Just kind of swallow that pill. But we got a lot of valuable data out of it in terms of like what worked, what didn't, what was breaking. But we also probably blew it with some of those customers. So now we have to go out and find other ones.
Because I noticed in your welcome email, you do mention that it's a beta version and there may be bugs in it as well. So you're sort of upfront being completely
We try to
honest about
over
it.
communicate the beta version. We put it in the logo. We put it on
Yeah.
the site. We send you an email telling you it's beta.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we do everything we can to kind of get some empathy from the from the user. So hopefully that works. But I would expect some people try it once and then decide that it doesn't work and it's not worth their time.
Yeah, fair enough.
I
Okay.
think we're past that point, by the way. We're
Okay.
it's no longer broken. I mean, there was
Yeah.
just like, I mean, we totaled up recently how many bugs we fixed. We fixed well over 200 bugs since we launched
Okay.
it,
Cool.
and it's just like all of these edge cases that it's really, really hard to anticipate until this thing comes along that breaks it, right? And you're like, oh, that's weird. What happened? Then you reverse engineer and you're like, oh, like that is like 1 in a million, but okay, good to know.
Mm. Okay. Interesting. All right. So if we sort of go back to the beginning a little bit, what was the biggest challenge you had to face when you first started your SaaS company, and how did you go about overcoming it?
I think the biggest challenge is just communicating the vision to other people when you have nothing to show for yourself. Especially with our platform, it's a complex first to market idea. We're not saying, oh, this is a hot market, we think we could do it a little bit better than the competition. We're saying, here's a new piece of ground that no one's ever been to. We're gonna plant a flag in it.
Mm.
And so describing the vision and then visualizing it and then getting graphic designers and then communicating that vision to a graphic designer and going through innumerable iterations to get the idea in my head onto the computer screen is a really challenging thing to do. And I think we've done it. But I can't understate how challenging it is to go and kind of explain the vision at the very beginning stages, and also get people to buy into it. Not just investors, but your business partners, right? And
Yeah.
and the engineers that they got to work on it, because technically, because you need really talented engineers, and these people command a lot of money, and
Mm.
they can work for any operation in the world because they're so good at what they do. And
Yeah.
so why are they going to spend their time working for your little thing? So
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. All right. So what are you curious about or researching right now regarding software and SaaS?
Well, what we're probably looking at right now is payment solutions, and it's not something that we want to handle on our own because of the security risks of like handling people's credit cards and things.
Yeah.
So we're looking at payment solutions that we can just plug into our site, handle all those transactions, and also have the flexibility to handle the invoicing requirements of our customers. So we might have some very sophisticated customers that need invoicing done in a particular way to meet their accounting standards, and
Oh,
other
yeah.
people who will just use a credit card.
Yeah.
But if someone's paying $20,000 a month for a platform, they're not going to put it on a credit card. So
Yeah. That's a good point.
you
Yeah.
have to have a more sophisticated invoicing system. So we're looking at these systems that exist and how we can integrate them, and that's what we're currently researching.
And I guess if you have international customers too, you'd need some sort of wire transfer system, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Interesting.
actually about 50% of our customers are international.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, or our users currently. Yeah, there's only about 55% of our users are from the United States, and so 45% are coming from outside the United States.
Okay. Interesting. There you go. All right. So just to wrap up, where can people go to find out more about Visably?
We are at visably.com. And we would love you to come check us out. It's Visably spelled with an A. And again, we do search engine visibility for your brand.
Awesome. All right, cool. Really appreciate your time, Chris. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, take care.